Welcome to the Voices in Recovery podcast. Voices in Recovery is produced by Freedom's Path Recovery Society, a registered Canadian charity. If you enjoy the podcast, please consider a donation to Freedom's Path Recovery Society. All donations go directly to assisting Freedom's Path in providing their services free of charge and helps us keep the podcast going. We are grateful for any and all donations. This podcast discusses difficult topics such as childhood abuse, drug and alcohol use, sexuality and sexualized trauma, and more. If you are under the age of 18, please speak with your legal guardian prior to listening. The opinions expressed during the podcast are those of the individual and not those of Voices in Recovery or Freedom's Path or any other organization. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast.
This podcast is being recorded on the traditional land of the Blackfoot Confederacy. This consists of the Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, and the Blackfeet in the U.S. We acknowledge the Stoney Nakoda, which consists of the Bearspaw, Morley, and Chiniki. We acknowledge the Tsuut'ina Huardene and the Métis, Inuit, status, and non-status from all of Turtle Island, and those who are visiting. We are all treaty people.
Whereabouts are you, if I can ask?
So I'm in, I just told Darcy, I'm in Alaska. I'm basically on the coast of the Bering Sea right now.
Wow.
I can see the Bering Sea. Well,
really?
Technically, right now it's kind of frozen over like on the coast. So, I can see where the Bering Sea should be.
Oh, I see. Okay, for sure. So the Bering Sea, that's where you can almost walk right across to Russia, right?
That's kind of the running gag, but
Yeah.
Theoretically, no, you can't. But yeah,
I guess you could if it did freeze deep enough,
absolutely.
I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's right on.
Yeah.
So hey, man, I don't know if you listened to the show or not, but yeah, just want to hear your story, man, of experience, strength, and hope, because I am sure there are lots of people out there that can learn and get lots of stuff from it.
I hope so, man. I can share what I have to offer, but yeah, I've seen a couple of your episodes. You have my sponsor on here before, and you have another one, a good friend from my group. So I'm familiar with the podcast, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure. And yeah, for sure. You take it away, sir. I'm excited to hear your story.
All right. I guess I'll try to make it a good one.
Let's do it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a little nervous, and I've really done nothing like this before, but
oh, that's okay.
I'll just
it's nerve-wracking, Clayton, for sure it is.
It is, but I think it's going to be good just to get it out, because I never had a chance to really just kind of let it all out,
Mm-hmm.
Part of addiction and everything is keeping all that shit hidden and secret and internalized, at least it was for me, but boy, oh boy, have I learned a lot about it since then. So, I guess I'd start at the beginning. Seems like a good place to start. So I'm the youngest out of 6 boys. I grew up with 5 older brothers, born and raised in Southern California, basically LA, right outside of LA. Born into a family of addicts. I think I was just kind of doomed from the start, addicts all around me, and my parents were both druggies, and I grew up seeing it my whole life. So from like the earliest time I can remember, my parents were, I could be drug specific on podcasts, right?
Yeah, for sure. You betcha. There's no constraints on here, man.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I grew up, and had meth, alcohol, everything around me my whole life, Back then in the early days, it was still like the pill form, the cross tops or whatever, my parents were doing. But, they started making meth when I was young. I remember watching them, blowing pipes and doing all that when I was a little kid, not knowing what the hell it was, but they weren't trying to hide it from me, so I assumed it was normal. I assumed it was just what people did. But being the youngest out of 6 boys, like my parents were, well, first off, my dad was always seemed to be gone. You know, my mom always locked herself in her room, um, basically just getting high and shutting off to the world. So me and my brothers were kind of on our own. We never had like active parents who were, you know, trying to teach us how to do the right thing and trying to raise us. And so we kind of raised each other. And by raise each other, I mean the older ones looked out for the younger ones. And I want to say looked out, but that might be giving too much credit. I mean, it was not easy. You know, being the youngest of 6, you know, it every day was just a constant battle for survival, you know. Everything from getting the shit kicked out of you to, you know, being excluded from everything. So this is something that I'm probably going to touch base on later on, because there was a lot of scars around that I've carried in my life through addiction, you know, being excluded, not being valued, not being good enough, not being worthy enough to be part of anything, you know. Always being like mistreated, and you know, every day was a constant battle to be loved and included. You know, I looked up to my brothers like gods, you know, and all I wanted was them to like me and them to include me and them to, you know, but that's not what happened, you know, with parents that were gone. The older ones just, it was a free for all, you know. There's just always people in and out of the houses. They're always just filled with druggies and I guess I grew up quick. I grew up fast. I grew up hard. There were some benefits to that, but you know, I think the thing I was really missing was good role models. You know, you know, everyone around me was using drugs, and I mean, that's all I ever know. But as a kid, I kind of had something going on for me. Like I always thought that I was destined for good things. You know, I always had a mentality of, you know what, I'm gonna grab the world by the balls and fucking conquer the world, and I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna make history. I'm gonna, you know, I always had that feeling about myself, you know. But you know, growing up starving, growing up poor, growing up with, you know, no food in the house, growing up with, you know, having to basically fight for survival between, you know, non-existent parents and brothers who just wanted to beat your ass and kick you out of anything they were doing, you know. I had to fend for myself a lot and be kind of on my own. And it led to a lot of traits that I'll probably touch base on earlier, but I feel kind of scattered. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but sorry about
good,
that.
Man. Very few stories are linear anyway. Especially when it comes to humans.
So, you know, when I was younger, like I was a little like overachiever, I guess. I mean, I like I said, I grew up quick, so I was always accelerated for my age, you know, in terms of intelligence, or education, or ambition, or just certain things like that. I was always, like I said, I thought I was going to conquer the world, and but it wasn't until, you know, I guess junior high that, well, actually before that is when I kind of started making the shift, you know, from being a good little boy to to my life as a druggie. And so it started, you know, without getting, you know, the attention that I sought from my parents, my brothers, you know, those around me. So I started finding the attention in the wrong places, as most often people do, and started hanging out with the wrong crowd, and finding attention in things that are illegal, immoral, and just frowned upon by society. Because finally, there's something I can fit in, and we appreciate that. So it was probably like the shift happened like 7th grade. So let me back up a little bit. So at the time, like around this time, my mom ended up going to prison for some white collar crimes, I guess, and our family got split up. My half of the brothers kind of went and said fuck this and did their own thing. The other half kind of went to go with my dad, but he again wasn't a good father. He was non-existent. He basically provided a roof, but that was it. I was never there emotionally. He's never there to talk, to do anything. And it was hard really getting a relationship with him, because he used to beat my ass as a kid, and I'd go to school with bruises and welts all over me, and I remember it was changing in gym, and teachers saw it and then called child services on us, had come down, and so he had a short temper, and I used to get the shitty end of it most of the time, and for reasons I really to this day don't even know why. But with him, having a short temper, and my mom being non-existent, she'd lock herself in the room just so she can get high, and then if we were hungry or needed attention or something, we'd knock on the door. She'd scream at us and say that she has high blood pressure, and so she can't come out, right? So as a kid, I used to think that my mom was dying in there. I said, I'd get all scared, start crying, be like, brothers start getting too loud, be like, no, don't, mom has high blood pressure. You're gonna kill her if you're too loud, And so just a lot of fear and a lot of, it just, and not having that support, and just always being shat on by the rest of the family, and by the brothers and everything. I grew up not thinking I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy of being loved. I wasn't worthy to be included in anything. No one gave a fuck about me. And, not even my parents cared about my well-being. So I felt just isolated and like an outcast from the get-go. Until I started meeting people from the wrong side of the tracks, and right around like 7th grade, and I started smoking cigarettes, started drinking, started smoking weed, started which is funny because like I always thought I had a good head on my shoulders, but couldn't help but just having a knack for the dark side, and I remember I got a assault with a deadly weapon charge, and I was in 7th grade, I think, or 8th grade, which followed me for a while. So by the time I was in high school, I had one of the only kids that had a probation officer that would come to school and check up on me. And so high school was interesting. You looked at me, I had long ass hair, always wore like heavy metal t-shirts, ripped up jeans, Doc Marten boots, either a leather jacket or a trench coat or something. Anybody see me, I'd be walking between my classes smoking cigarettes, and anybody saw me and they think, okay, you're troublemaker, bottom of the barrel scumbag sort of thing. But it's funny because I would get like straight A's, get good grades, like always at the top of all my classes. The teachers loved me because they saw me. I like to just fuck around with the stereotypes. I guess you'd see me and you think one thing, but what I did on the back end, was totally blew all that away. And so I remember I'd have like my probation officer come in and like we had open campus at lunch. I'd take off. We'd go get high. I'd bring booze with me. We'd be getting drunk at lunch, smoking cigarettes, got a backpack full of weed, coming back to campus. And then there's the dean and my PO standing there waiting for me to cross the field and say, hey, Mr. Connor, how you doing? Like, can I check your backpack? You got anything you shouldn't have on you? I'd be like, high as a kite. I'm like, here, check it, bluffing them. And like, no, we don't worry about you. So I guess the good thing that I had going for me was the ambition, that I had to drive that there was just something that, that was better than the shit. But addiction is a ugly fucking cunning monster. And, all the ambition, all the drive, everything in the world, it doesn't matter, because then, at that point I was small scale, just smoking weed, drinking, smoking cigarettes. But my 9th grade year, I got introduced to the monster called meth, and everything fucking changed at that point. I remember, it was the most fucking enjoyable feeling in the world, feeling like God, feeling like that first time was unfucking believable. And I met someone at a bus stop who we're talking. He ended up giving me a line. I get a line, stayed up for like 3 or 4 days off that one line. And it was a fucking rush. And that's it. I was hooked. So for the years of high school, I got into it really bad, using daily, using large amounts. My mom was cooking it in the apartments where we were living. I was selling drugs for her, when I'd go to school, I usually had dope on me, and I'd have a whole list of people I'm selling to. I managed to stay in school, but it was bad. I mean, I was using so fucking much that finally, like after high school, when my family just went to shit, everyone kind of went their own way, and again, just kind of left me on my own. So then I was on my own after high school, and try to do the right thing, get a job, had my own apartment for a little bit, going to college, but the drug was too strong. So I had to watch my life shatter all around me, and I couldn't do anything about it because the fucking love of the drug was more important than anything else, I watched people, that my friends all around me, like everyone dying, going to jail, getting, people just go from having a good life down to the fucking gutter, I remember, it got to the point where, so let me back up a little bit. So, I was always into art and stuff growing up. My brothers didn't want to include me in anything, so I'd basically just be sitting around drawing all day long. And that's all I ever did. And I got to the point where I started getting really good at it, and it became, something. When I was a kid, I knew, like, I want to be an artist. I want to be an artist when I grow up. I want to make a living doing that. And I did, and I got you. So I guess I had a talent for it that carried me along, and it was always something to fall back to or hold on to. Or everything okay?
Yeah, my cat just knocked something over. I don't know what happened back there. Sorry about that, man.
No worries, no worries.
I've got this cat who really doesn't like me talking to anything but him, right? So sorry, man, please continue.
It's all good. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going with all this, but
No problem.
I'm just going to go and just see where it goes.
You betcha.
So, it got to the point where, I started going to college, and, there'd be times I'd be using on and off, but when I really was using, like, it got to the point where, life doesn't fucking matter, man. The only thing that matters is getting that bag, getting fucking high. You start losing everything around you. And I've watched everything being torn from me, one by one, and watched everything crumble around me, and didn't give a fuck about it because, I found hope in the bag. I found self-esteem in the fucking bag of dope. I found, people liked me all of a sudden, but people liked me because I was the one holding the bag, people liked me because my insecurities would make me latch on to these people here. Well, if I'm supplying you with drugs, and then, I have all this friendship that, it's fake. And so I basically watched everything crumble around me, and just kept getting harder and harder and harder into drugs. I had lost my jobs. I lost everything. At one point, I lost my job. I was working as a manager at a Michael's, framing art store. And I decided to take a risk and jump headfirst into my career as an artist. And I'm glad I did. Basically, with no safety net, no experience, no nothing. I just dove in and started getting clientele. And it just, when things started going good, like, getting money, getting clients, getting some prestige, getting this and that, that just fueled that fucking addiction worse, so now I have money to support my habit. But when you spend all day, chasing the dope and chasing the pipe, chasing the drugs, and nothing else around you, it is important anymore. And again, I got to the point where my family fucking disowned me. Everyone around me disowned me. I stopped working because I'd spend all day, I'd show up to a job and I'd be there for a half hour, but I'd already be on the phone and fucking going to the dope man's house and, spending the day there trying to score. And to where everything, like, I started losing my work, and my clientele started dropping off. I didn't give a shit, I was too busy finding peace in the drugs. And it got to the point eventually where I'm, losing everything around me. I lost my home. I lost everything, I got to the point where I hit fucking rock bottom more than once, but notably, being on the streets and sleeping in my car, and, having nowhere to live, and then, getting your car taken away. I mean, there's a point where I had to fucking sleep in my storage unit, because everyone turned their back on me. Everyone, I couldn't stay at the drug houses because they were getting raided left and right. My own family turned their back on me and disowned me. Car I was sleeping in, I couldn't even afford to drive that and keep that around. So I had to park that somewhere, and eventually got towed. So at one point I was living in this crack house, I guess. They were squatting there, and I be honest, I don't even know how the fuck I came across these people, but I think I was introduced from someone else, and like, oh yeah, they got a room you can stay in. So, I go and stay in this room, the house that basically no water, no trash, no nothing. So you couldn't flush the toilets. The toilets are just filling up with shit, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, no trash service. So the whole backyard is just getting piled with all the trash. And the two people that were living there were total crackheads. And, you know, I was a tweaker. You know, I didn't get into coke till a little bit later on. You know, but I tried it. I tried it, you know, crack, but it was too just short-lived, and it wasn't worth it. You know, like something that was more longer lasting. And you know, so speed, you know, meth for me was my go-to. It was my jam. But in high school, I was, you know, doing psychedelics, doing LSD and mushrooms, smoking weed, drinking, doing speed all the time. But that was my drug of choice that really kind of lasted for a long time. So eventually in this little crack house, I got sick and tired of the little possessions I had getting robbed from me whenever I'd leave the house for a moment. You know, I'd go try to go score a bag, and all of a sudden I'd come back and all my shit would be broken into, everything would be gone. So the few possessions I did have left, you know, were just getting stolen from me. And that's what I didn't try to sell in order to get my next fix. But there's nothing worse in the world than having to give everything you have just for the fucking high. And nothing you won't eat, you'll sell your possessions, you'll sell heirlooms, you'll sell anything that you have that you can get your hands on. What you can't get your hands on, you're gonna fucking steal. And what you can't steal, you know, you're gonna steal from your own family, your own mother, your own grandma, you know, right in front of their face, and lie to them about it, because it doesn't matter. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is fucking sacred except for that drug. Nothing is sacred except for getting your next fix. Nothing is precious anymore except for the high. And, you know, and I watched myself just throw everything away constantly and not give a shit about it, you know, and the depression was so fucking bad, and just hating myself so much where I'm, you know, wanting to kill myself. I'm wanting to die because I'm ashamed at my addiction, and I'm ashamed at who I am. And, you know, my self-esteem being so bad that nobody gives a shit about me. You know, nobody gives a shit about who I am or what I'm capable of. And I don't even care about myself. There have been many times where, you know, I would try to overdose. I would try to just end it all because the pain was just too fucking much. And then it got to a point where, you know, like, I'm tired of being on the streets. I had to sleep in my storage unit, and it's like a little 5x5 fucking, you know, the gates would close at night, so I had to be there before night, before they close the gate, and then being there all night long in a fucking storage unit, you know. But I'm higher than a kite, so I'm, you know, in there just letting my mind go off on a tangent. And it got to the point where you would think it'd be, you know, enough is enough, but no, that's still not fucking rock bottom, man, you know. And it got sad. Like my own family didn't want anything to do with me. I had no more friends because I fucked them over somehow, or they fucked me over somehow, or something happened. So, you know, I'm losing all the people around me. At one point, I moved to Portland to try to get clean and change my life. And my brother took me in up there. It worked for a little while, but I never dealt with the addiction. I never dealt with the problem. And it came back to bite me in the ass. And I moved back down to California to jump right back in where I left off, you know. And luckily, I had my oldest brother took me in and let me sleep on his couch, because he was the only person that was there for me that would do anything. And, you know, I was living off of food stamps, or, you know, basically I did was like a $200 a month or something pathetic. And of course, as soon as that money came, I blew it all on fucking drugs as quick as I got it. It was gone, you know. And you know, I'm hustling. I'm running drugs for people, you know, to try to get my own fix, you know. And it all changed when, you know, in 2012, when I immigrated to Canada, and, you know, changed my life around. So basically, you know, after being through the gutter and my life couldn't get any worse, and I met somebody that I fell in love with, and you know, she was running a roofing company in Calgary, and
right on, Calgary. That's right.
yeah. So and she was
so you fell in love with a Canadian girl. That's what happened.
Well, yeah. So she was actually born and raised in California, but she moved to Canada and married and divorced a Canadian. So she got her permanent residency, and they had started a roofing company in Calgary. And I don't know if I should mention any names, or maybe just better I don't say it.
Probably better you don't, just in case, man. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And you know, and at the time, like, I had just gotten out of a relationship. She was in the middle of a divorce. You know, I didn't want to be with anybody. She didn't want to be with anybody. But we were introduced by her cousin, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are gonna be perfect for each other. You guys are like," you know, and she was right. It was like love at first sight. We fell in love, and she knew I was using, but she never used before. And I think she was like my beacon of hope in a way, you know, where I got sick and tired of having nothing and amounting to nothing, and living in the streets and living that I finally saw it as an opportunity to get clean and change my life. You know, a lot of times you don't, you need a reason to really recover and get out of it, you know. And I think I saw that reason in her. So anyway, immigrated to Calgary. We lived in Bragg Creek, and as became a roofer, started, you know, working up there, got my permanent residency. So I got clean off of meth for the first time in my life. And this lasted 8.5 years. I was clean off meth, but I never dealt with my addiction. I never dealt with my problem. You know, the problem is I had, you know, demons in my closet. I had skeletons in the closet. I had all these like traumas and stuff from my childhood that I never dealt with, you know. The way I dealt with shit was I sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist and just hope it goes away. And that's how I deal with my problems, because that's the only way I learned how to, you know. You know, we had a fucked up dysfunctional family, and that's how we dealt with our shit. We swept under the rug and pretend like it didn't exist. And you know, and if shit blows up in your face that way, and you know, my family never taught me how to deal with feelings, never had taught me how to deal with problems. We ran from our problems. We numbed our problems. We, you know, we did drugs. We did everything but deal with life on life's terms, you know. So I basically disowned my family after moving to Canada, and I would see them once every couple of years or something, you know, and just kind of moved on and started my own life. And you know, things were going good, except for I never dealt with addiction, you know. I might have been clean from using, but I didn't deal with the problem. And so I started drinking, you know. I just kept on smoking weed and then started drinking a lot. And that became a slippery slope, you know, substitution. And I think the relationship itself became a substitution too, because here I was addicted to this concept of love and attachment and everything. But meanwhile, I'm you know, pushing the envelope in terms of drinking, and getting to the point where I'm drinking nonstop. I fucking driving home drunk on 22X, you know, flipped a fucking truck in the ditch right there off of 22X, and drunk off my ass. And I'm like, oh fuck, I had to run and call somebody to pick me up before the RCMP came, because had they had picked me up, you know, I would have been deported in a heartbeat, you know. And I ended up, you know, the drinking, even then, it didn't stop. You know, I'd still drink. I'd still, you know, try to control it, but it controlled me. It owned me. You know, even got a DUI later, and which of course would ban me from citizenship or residency in Canada. But by the grace of God, you know, God looks out for me, and I got a lawyer who made it all go away.
Wow.
Anyway, I didn't get charged. I got charged with reckless driving, and anyway, the long story on that one. But so I guess you know, my life was going good. So then, you know, I devoted myself back to my art. I finally got feel good about myself again. You know, the piece of shit scumbag that I was when I was using was gone, you know, and now I started getting a sense of self-worth and self-esteem and all these things that made me look up to the future and have you know, a bright road ahead of me and a chance at life. You know, everything was going good until my oldest brother passed away suddenly of a heart attack. So I went down to California to go bury him and go deal with that. And after 8 years of sobriety, I relapsed. You know, I couldn't deal with the pain. I was having, you know, relationship issues that basically I was kind of abandoned during that time. I mean, without going into details about that, I relapsed, and I relapsed fucking hard. And, you know, you don't start all over again. You know, you end up where you left off, if not worse. You know, so I started using again really heavily, and you know, drinking, using everything, just trying to numb the pain, trying to get rid of the fucking hurt that I was feeling. You know, and all the little things that little addicts on our shoulder tell ourselves, like the angel and the devil, you know, little devils getting in your ear and saying, oh, it's okay, nobody's gonna know, we're, you know, we can ride this out. And you got the angel saying, okay, well, you better stop now because it's gonna get out of hand, yada yada yada. Well, I kept it up, and I kept going, and I kept it hidden from, you know, I mean, I learned how to hide it really good, because earlier in my life, it became a functional addict where nobody knew I was using. You know, back up my stories. I was married briefly at one point for almost 2 years, and I didn't get into that part of the story, but was using nonstop during that time, and they had no fucking clue. No one knew. I mean, I got really good at hiding my addictions. And so basically after this relapse, you know, I went back to my wife at the time. This is wife number 2. You know, and we had kids, we had a busy life together. And she had no idea I was using, and I was using right under her nose. And the relapse lasted for a year and a half, about, you know, where I'm using daily and hiding it and creating fights and drama and everything, just justify using, you know. We were living in Mexico at the time, so we were going to Mexico for a couple winters and living there during the winter time. And that's when, you know, the shit got bad over there, you know. I'm picking fights basically to justify my use, you know, to basically have a reason to take off and go use. And meanwhile, you know, I'm watching my family crumble around me. You know, I'm watching this woman that I was madly in love with at the time and raising a family with, you know, watching everything turn to shit again, you know, and watching it self-destruct all around me, not giving a fuck about it. You know, it's watching it go, watching it crumble, watching it dissolve. But not only that, but I'm making it dissolve by my drug use, you know. And, you know, it didn't matter. Like, all the good blessings in the world didn't fucking matter, because getting high, finding that comfort and you know, finding that sense of identity in the drugs, it's really what mattered, you know. And so here I am watching my life crumble before me again, you know, and losing everything, losing my wife, losing my kids, losing, didn't fucking matter, you know, because nothing is as important as getting high. And so towards the end of that, you know, she moved back. She went back to Canada, and I took my kids and went to California from, you know, where my family is, because of course I knew that that's where I get the good drugs, and I can go back to, you know, not having to hide it anymore. And so I did that. And, you know, she had found out that I was using, and basically flipped out, of course, you know, went down there, got the kids, took the kids away, and went back. So by the time we had moved to the Yukon, you know, so we're no longer in Alberta, but she went back to the Yukon and went and filed divorce. And again, you know, here I am, not giving a fuck, you know. I'm losing everything again, losing my work, losing my family, losing my children, losing my wife, losing my life, losing my everything, and not caring, because that drug has you by the soul so fucking much that nothing else matters. And I got to the point again where I'm watching everything crumble around me, and everything that I had precious in my life gone, being stripped away again. And it got to the point where, you know, I couldn't take it again. I couldn't take it anymore. And, you know, I knew I was better than that. And here I am again, watching everything dissolve around me, and just the self-hate and the self-pity, and basically, so I checked myself into rehab. I went back up to the Yukon and went into rehab, and changed my life around again, you know, but this time, you know, took it seriously. So being clean for 8 years before that, I wasn't really clean, because I wasn't dealing with the problem, you know. It was like I didn't deal with the demons, I didn't deal with the skeletons. I thought that addiction, you know, I'd never called myself an addict. I'm like that, you know, an addict's, it's not a disease, you know, it's a character flaw, you know. I justified it because I grew up, I had a fucked up family with a fucked up upbringing, and, you know, it's just a character flaw. It's not a disease, you know. But going through rehab, and I don't know what happened, man, but something clicked. Something you know, I finally looked at myself, look at my actions as, you know what? I have a fucking disease, man. I have a fucking disease. And it is a crippling, debilitating, horrible fucking disease where, you know, it strips you of everything, your livelihood, your happiness, your family, your everything you hold near and dear in your life, gone, taken from you, and you watch it crumble. And you know, um, and now, you know, I've been, um, after the rehab, you know, I took my disease seriously, and I started going in a 2 or 3 meetings a day, and you know, every single day. And I guess the thing that's different about this time around is, you know, I couldn't do it before. Like I tried to do it on my own. It didn't fucking work. Willpower doesn't work. You know, not admitting that it's a disease, admitting it, you know, thinking it's a character defect, that doesn't work. You know, surrendering to a higher power, surrendering to the fact that it is a disease. I am powerless, and I would watch my life burn around me multiple times and be powerless to do anything about it, you know. But you know, so now going into the rooms NA and finding a sponsor, and which you've interviewed my sponsor for, Hugger John.
Oh, Hugger John. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember him? Yeah, that's my
sure. Of course, I remember him. How could I forget Hugger John?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And
Yeah.
you know, all I want to say is like the community, the fellowship, like being, you know, finally I saw myself being included in something. You know, I saw the love, and I can't put into words like just how fucking amazing this program is, and how amazing that every person in those rooms who has been through hell and back, just as I have, you know, knows what I've been through, who's been there themselves, and doesn't ostracize me because of it. You know, doesn't, I'm no longer the fucking weirdo, piece of shit, you know, worthless fucking addict, you know. It's, I can't stress enough the power of the fellowship and being in a program where the support that you receive, and or the support that I receive, and the love is genuine. You know, it doesn't matter all the fucked up things I've done. It doesn't matter. You know, they love me for who I am, and to finally feel that, and to feel that I matter. You know, I've never mattered in my whole fucking life ever. You know, and to be in that room and just to matter to somebody, and to like it's
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
I got my life back, man. I got my fucking life back after watching it crumble, and losing it more than once, and losing everything around me. Like, you know, and it's through recovery, and it's through NA. And even though I lost everything else in my life, you know, I have my life back. And, you know, the work I'm doing on myself, you know, I'm never going back to that again. I am never going to be a fucking back in addiction again. I'm finally dealing with myself in a way that, you know, I'm dealing with the demons in the closet, dealing with the skeletons in the closet, dealing with all the shit that kept following me, you know, all my shadows. And now I have my fucking life back. You know, you don't understand how it's like being a fucking puppet to this disease, you know, to basically, you know, living on the fucking streets, living in the gutter, living having to rob and steal and break every law imaginable to get by, just to get another fucking fix, just to get high, and then to get your life back and to give it back on track in a way that I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. And I feel like I've omitted a lot of the horrible, ugly details of specifics of my life in active addiction, but I don't know if it's really important for the message, I guess.
It's only important if you think it is, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think what I really want to portray is just like, the sense of hope, the sense of no matter what, no matter how bad things are, there's something better. And if you're not dealing with yourself, if you're not dealing with the things that are holding you back and kept you imprisoned in that lifestyle, it's so easy to be consumed by it. It's so easy to be hopeless and be helpless, and it's easier just to stay high and forget about your problems than it is to stand up and then deal with things. And I feel like I feel like I sugarcoated things a little bit too much, but
no, I don't think you did, man. I think you shared exactly how you needed to share. Everyone does it a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
There's no like right way or wrong way, man. The way that works for you best is the right way. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Matt? Anything you want to say to somebody out there, maybe who's alone in the dark?
Well, anybody out there who's struggling, it's like I know the pain, I know the desperation, and now that I'm in recovery and like I'm helping all the newcomers that are coming in, and I'm there, I'm available to talk to everybody because I know what it's like, and it's literally the equivalent of demonic possession, and because the person you become, everything you think, everything you do, everything you believe it's not you, it's hard when you're in the middle of it and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but everybody out there who's struggling, it is worth it. It all starts with reaching out. It all starts with being sick and tired of being sick and tired. You can only hit rock bottom so many times before you finally want to do something about it. And it's so fucking hard when it's all you've ever known and all you've ever been, all I can say is reach out, because there's people out there who care about you and want to help you see through it. And there's people out there who know the struggle and will, do everything in their power to help guide you over to the light. It's lonely at the bottom, and there's only so much pain and trauma you can take before you finally get sick of it. And the love is out there, the hope is out there.
Right on. Excellent, Clayton. Well, thank you so much, man. It's great talking to you. Yeah, give your sponsor a cyber hug, because I know you guys aren't in the same place. But so let me ask you a question about Alaska, because obviously it's beautiful up there. In the winter, do you see polar bears up there, like where you are?
No, so the polar bear is a little running joke I have with, you know, somebody out there. No, there's no polar bears here, but
Okay.
I joke about them, and I tell people that I got to take the penguins to work, and then we're snakes up here and polar bears. But you do know how to make a polar bear trap, though, right?
You do?
Yeah.
Just
So
walk
you
out in
got
the
to
snow, I imagine, and wait for them.
pretty much, you go out to like the frozen lakes. There's frozen lakes and stuff out here everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You go and you got to go and like you cut like a big hole in the ice on the frozen lake, and you get like a can of peas, like green
Yeah.
peas, and you go and
Yeah.
you got to get them and you got to put them like around the hole and all the way around it. And then you go run and hide, like you said, right? You sit there and wait. And you wait for the polar bear to come up. And when he bends over to take a pee, you kick him in the ice hole. Works every time, man.
I love it, man. Alaska humor. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Alaska's a trip, man.
Man.
So I'm working in, I'm in the Yupik Eskimo community. So
Okay.
I'm doing some art projects out
That's
here.
interesting. So do you guys down in the States, do you guys still refer to the folks up there as Eskimos?
Yeah, so there's
because we call them the Inuit peoples, right? Inuit peoples of the North. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. So where I'm at is the Yupik people, and they have no problem being called Eskimo.
Yupik, okay, Yupik people. That's right. Okay.
Inuits, however, do not like being called Eskimos. Inuits, it's very derogatory to call them Eskimos.
But that's because it's a different reference altogether, right?
You would think so, but the lifestyle and the culture is very, very, very similar. But for some reason, there is a discrepancy. I mean, it's like the same thing as in Canada. It's First Nations. You don't. In the lower 48, they call them Indians. But calling Indians
even the indigenous people down south, they think it's a point of pride to be called an Indian, right? Where
that's like Americans, that's all they call them is Indians,
Yeah,
but
and we refer up here to the First Nations or indigenous people of Canada.
Yeah, you call them Indians. That's derogatory. It's like calling them racist.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we don't refer to any peoples as Eskimos anymore. It's we consider Inuit, or as you just pointed out, that there's a Yupik. There's a different, or sorry, what was the word you used?
Yeah, Yupik is
yeah, so that's probably another. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I was curious about it because I know that even though we share a border, we have some pretty huge differences in how we like refer to, other cultures, right? Like it's pretty interesting. But anyway, yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on, Clayton. I feel like not only did I learn something, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure, man.